Hey Zwifters, and welcome to this special edition of the Zwiftcast. With the eagerly awaited event module just around the corner, and it could happen as soon as the end of January, this special edition of the Zwiftcast is going to indulge in a bit of speculation, well, actually quite a lot of speculation and a bit of wishful thinking. What might be in this feature, which Zwift themselves describe as game-changing? I've gathered a uniquely well-qualified roundtable of guests to discuss it. James Gill is the author of the much-admired Titanium Geek unofficial fan guide to Zwifting. He's a racer, a race organiser, and a mainstay of UK Zwifters. Cassie Baldy is a prominent voice in the ladies section of Zwift, an experienced group ride leader and also a racer. Frank Garcia helps run Team X, one of the biggest race teams on Zwift, and is also a highly experienced group ride leader, as well as being one of the fastest riders on the island. All three are what we might call veteran Zwifters. So welcome to the Zwiftcast, everybody, and I'm going to kick straight off with the first question, and I'll ask you to answer first, Cassie. What do we think is going to be in the event module?
I think there's going to be some sort of help with lead riders. So there's going to be, so you can see really clearly hopefully who's going to be the lead rider. And hopefully there's going to be a starting pen that everyone sets off at a set time and they just go and they're on little trainers. That's kind of what the rumours are at the moment. Yeah,
I think those two things are pretty much nailed on. James, what would you add to our what we think we know list?
Well, I'd certainly like to say yes, definitely to the warm-up pens. I'd quite like to see some visual feedback with that, so you can get everybody together. You see the big countdowns, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then everyone, I don't know, jumps off the trainers, whatever. That's when the race starts. It might be interesting to see whether or not that's automated. So do we still need the race leaders? Or whether or not the race leader will, I don't know, have a big red button to press to release everybody. Yeah.
Frank, I get the sense that the accent that Zwift are putting on kind of training and recruiting ride leaders means that we will still see them.
I would agree with that.
What else do you think we might see in the event module?
I'm not sure. I think the first phase will probably be somewhat subdued in terms of features. I think it's going to be mobile-centric, so I think it'll sort of require you interacting with your phone to achieve a lot of the group features.
Give us an example of how you think that might work. Presumably they're not going to rely on people typing while they're riding.
Yeah, so I think they're going to, maybe you can start yourself, or the ride leader can start yourself. Maybe there's some filtered lists on the phone versus on screen, so you can sort of see who is in the group and how they're interacting with you.
Yeah, that's really important, and perhaps that's the cue to move on to what we would really like to see in the module. Cassie, what would be top of your wish list?
I think, again, going on to the leader thing for me, because being a leader out there, it is challenging, and I think we should have a real recognised sort of, so that people, it may be an automated thing where people don't actually go past you at a set wattage, I don't know, but something that would really help us, because we do get a lot of stick out there for doing lead rides and not sticking to the watts and stuff. So for events, I think that would probably be beneficial.
I think that's a great point. Frank, one of the big gripes, of course, of group rides is people exceeding the stated pace. Do you think what Cassie's suggesting is possible or desirable?
I think, yes, something in that venue. I think if I was to sort of top of mind, not talk about events in terms of signing up and clicking on something to start an event, but the actual ride leader functionalities, I think I would create two things: the ability to mute a given rider easily, and the ability to make a given rider disappear, perhaps, for like a minute.
So you mean like a kind of yellow card or a kind of sin bin?
Yes, and I think it could just be as simple as them disappearing. So if someone starts to go hard and go off the front, you just click on them, and they just disappear for everybody. And so the rest of the group, it doesn't feel compelled to try and follow.
I think that's a really good idea. James, what do you think about that, and what would be top of your wish list?
On a slight variation of making that rider disappear, it would be great to be able to flag somebody, have it automatically flagged. All the way through doing ZTRs and things, I've actually been very against the idea of disqualifications and things like that. But we've already got the little alert symbols that occur when we think there's a Z-power miscalibration. So it'd be really useful if you could set, not for the racers, but more for a ride, sort of a 3.5 watt per kilo maximum like you have on the Richmond rides. When someone goes over that, they get a flag by their name. So there is actually a reason to keep everybody together. You're still doing your ride. If you want, you can push for it. But at the same time, there's a recognition that you're deviating slightly from what was considered maybe that ride etiquette, perhaps. I would give my eye teeth for Zwift to allow you to match the speed of a rider when you choose ride with. If someone comes late to a ride, they click the ride leader, they appear next to them, at the moment, stationary. If they were matching pace, it would let someone join a ride late.
Another really, really cracking idea. Frank, how much of this do you think is really possible? And do you think, I mean, you've already indicated that phase one may be possibly just a little underwhelming, but do you think they'll save some real bells and whistles for phase two?
Certainly, Zwift as a platform offers a great deal of potential. I think they could do a tremendous amount. And I hope that they will, continue on to phase two and beyond with many of these features, especially to help the group rides. I think that's really important. I think maybe one thing to focus on before all the other fancy stuff with regards to group rides is drafting, and just really getting that so that it makes a lot of sense. Because I think that's part of also why you get the group surging. It's hard to catch people in a group who are off the front. And so people don't want to see a group go off the front. So I think a few small corrections like that makes a big difference. Yeah.
I mean, the drafting algo has been kind of tweaked, almost endlessly. Do you think there are still problems with it?
I hear a lot of problems. I haven't raced on the latest updates. I understand that those are people are experiencing some issues with drafting again in those areas. So I don't think they have that quite dialed all the way in, and I think it's different. I think that it's one of the areas where Zwift could get some input from racers. They're, much more in tune with what's happening with the drafting and the changes there that go on there.
Yeah. Well, as you introduce the idea of racers, let's raise this issue that caught some attention in my interview with Steve Beckett, in which he said, obviously factually very correctly, that racing is niche on Zwift and that the new event module is not going to cater specifically to racers. James, what was your reaction to that?
I think I can see where it's coming from, in the sense that Zwift, I think, is positioning them, and quite rightly so, as an event beg your pardon, as an events module, but part of that is the racing itself. Personally, I almost never log on to Zwift now just to do a lap of the track. If I am, it's going to be recceing something for another ride or getting pictures for the fan manual. I'm only really going on there for events and riding with other people. I mean, Zwift have made this fabulous resource. The community is amazing, and that's why I'm there. And I think to necessarily try and narrow it down from one thing, I think almost closes down a lot of the amazing work they've already done.
Cassie, do you, as a racer, feel as though we're in danger of being ignored from the racing fraternity?
I don't think so too much, but I mean, the group ride, as Steve said, is an important part because it gets dominant of more people into it and more people want to. It's like with the ladies group, for example. I've asked how many ladies out of, say, 200 people want to race. There's only 50 that want to be racing. It's still a pretty good amount of number, but it's still not a high percentage of the women who are on Zwift want to race. So it is a low percentage of people that do want to race. So we do need to take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that would be quite a high proportion from a particular group. Zwift have actually said that they think as few as 10% of the user base actually race. Frank, obviously you come from a racing heritage, and a lot of what you do on Zwift is racing. Do you feel that Zwift are missing a trick by not being super race friendly right from the outset?
I don't know if they're missing a trick per se. I think obviously events in general are more important, and I think a wider swath of the community is going to participate in events that aren't racing oriented. That being said, I think racing has the ability, I think, one, people like to watch it. Two, I think more people would race if they felt comfortable around racing.
If it was easier, for sure.
Yeah, certainly. And I think there's some things that can be done there. But I think most importantly for the community, what racing offers is the ability to sort of be the precursor, the testing area for Zwift. So if they were to release, new features or change drafting or whatever, I think the racing community is a great community for them to sort of trial things in first. Because that community is very attentive to detail.
James, as I say, Steve Beckett in my interview with him described the event module and the Watopia extension, to be fair, but the event module is coming first. He described that as a potential game changer for Zwift. Do you think he was overstating, understating, got it about right?
To be honest, with some of the rumours that we hear and with the potential that it's got, I think it could be absolutely correct. If you look at the complaints that tend to get thrown around from people flying off the front of a ride, or shooting off in a neutral in a race, or having difficulty with race results afterwards, all of those could massively power Zwift. And if any of these things are addressed in the events module, I think it will be a real sea change. And I think Cassie raised a really good point there. You've got the people who come on to ride in a group that need a particular type of event setup. Some, back admin from the race leaders from Zwift to allow the thing to function. But then you've also got the racing community, and I do think that they go both ways. But you've also got the people who have already, they've got the workouts there. I think there's sort of a three-way split, and all of those could potentially be working really, really well in an event module. There's no reason to say you couldn't have a group of people using an event module set together so that you're all doing the set training module together. It could really bring the community together.
Cassie, coming to you as a leader of the ladies section, and I don't want to categorise you as only being interested in this area, because I know your areas are much wider than that. But do you think that a properly done events module could have a radically different effect in the way ladies use Zwift?
Oh, definitely. I see ladies all the time. I mean, I just come off the bike leading a ladies' ride myself. And I think that it will definitely help the ladies feel more... Because there was a lady who commented saying that she was really upset. She was really disheartened because the race leader didn't go with the pace. She couldn't catch on to the group. So she just vented it all in the ladies group. And we kind of just have to encourage her to get back onto the Zwift thing again, because she's actually drifted away from Zwift now because she's discouraged because she didn't enjoy the group experience. But I think having that group and that event module, event facility, having that there will then encourage more women, and it will bring everyone together and just that little bit more.
Yeah, Frank, the USP of Zwift, I mean, the thing that is so revolutionary about Zwift is it enables social indoor riding. I guess that might be what they're talking about in game-changing terms for the event module. Do you agree? I
don't agree. I think that some of the features would be helpful and nice, but I think the game-changing nature has already occurred. I think that previous ride leaders, WSRs has been around for months and months, running on Saturday and Sunday, and I think that's already the revolutionary. Now, how do we tweak it? I don't think it's so much game-changing. I think the game has already changed, and we see that with the explosion of riders on Zwift, and the community itself is just phenomenal. And how now do we make it so that we don't get those people who get upset? What can we do to tweak it so that the vast majority of people are happy with events and rides?
James, what proportion, I mean, this is wild guesswork, but what proportion of the user base do you think currently do group rides, and what proportion do you think would do if it was a dream event module that made group riding really simple to do? I don't mean easy as in not working hard, but I mean simple.
I would say there's probably at least 2/3 do some form of group riding. If you look at the Facebook groups and things like that, there's lots of people talking about, oh, I've done this section, or I've done that ride, or I've done this race. So I think that's very much in the background. People are saying, I'm thinking about doing this, and there's lots of people always pop up and say, oh, try this one, or this group, this are a friendly group, or these guys are really supportive. So I do think that the events are probably going to be the biggest part and a big draw for people going forwards with that. How many are they likely to get from it? I think if it's done properly, it will only grow. I can't see there really being a downside to it.
Cassie, what do you think? Do you think this will increase group ridership numbers?
I mean, the group ridership numbers at the moment are quite high as they are. I think, especially these ones that Zwift organise, I think, or advertise, they're quite high. I'm not sure it'll increase it, but I'm sure it'll make people happier to ride. I mean, hopefully it will increase it.
Frank, what's your take?
I think it will increase over time. I think what you see is sometimes you get an upset rider, and it can just be one on a ride who didn't start on time or who did get dropped because the group was going too hard, and they can be currently very vocal, and that gives that whole ride a sort of bad feeling to it. And I think the vast majority of people might be enjoying the ride, but you don't get that feel. So I think these tweaks will tend to increase the number and frequency of people who do events.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Going back to what we think might be in it, I mean, I'm not sure we've mentioned this or mentioned it absolutely specifically. And my top of my wish list, and listeners to the Zwiftcast may be familiar with this because I do go on about it a lot, but I would like to see the riders nearby leaderboard confined to displaying only those riders who are in the group ride at the time. Do you think that could work, James?
I think that could work, and I don't see any reason why it should be particularly difficult. I mean, most of the rides and races use particular rider tags, so, you know, the Wednesday Watopia ride for WWR or the ZTR for the Zwift training races. So I think you could filter very easily for something like that, and then you make sure that a couple of people are identified in it, maybe in pre-event setup from the race leaders. A sweeper, someone at the back, and maybe a couple of pace markers as well, one to lead each of the individual groups. And I think, as you say, have that pinned on one side could be very, very useful.
What do you think, Frank?
I agree. I think that the list being filtered would be very, very good. You could see more easily who is ahead and who is behind in the group and take appropriate action.
Yeah. No, it's definitely my hobby horse, that one, and I really hope that they do it. Cassie, is there anything about the whole group ride thing that we've not covered that you might expect to see covered by the release of the module?
Some of the stuff that might come out, I think we might be surprised, but then I don't know. You know, it's really hard to speculate on. Will this happen? Will it not happen? So,
yeah, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, it would be nice to think that Zwift had a surprise up the sleeve. Do you think they have, Frank?
Hopefully they have one or two surprises. I think from my point of view, one of the things that I would like to see is Zwift acting a little bit more as a sort of a platform entity. So here I think it would be great to have all the group rides in one place, and that would be Zwift, and be able to click and join a ride or click and indicate that you're going to join a ride. And then when you wanted to join the ride, click on it and it shoots you right into Zwift.
I think that's going to happen, and I think that'll be garnished with using the mobile app to make that intuitive. So they might even send you a notification saying when the ride is and who else is in it, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So I think that's just a sweet spot for Zwift, and I look forward to that functionality.
James, anything you think we've missed out on that could come up and surprise us?
I'm sure that John Mayfield's got plenty of ideas in the can that he's been waiting to deploy for years. So I'm sure we're going to get some surprising thing, something that we didn't think of, or perhaps something that someone maybe think that's not going to work. But look how race power-ups have worked. If you said to someone, and even a couple of years ago, I'm going to have a biking computer game with draft bonuses and weight bonuses, people would think that would be terrible. But it has worked very well. I think that they're going to always have something in there.
Isn't it weird? I'm a grown man and I'm excited to find out what a crazy indoor cycling computer game is going to have in its next release. It's a strange old world, isn't it?
Well, it's certainly an improvement from how it used to be with the turbo.
Yeah, well, that much is for sure. Cassie, James, Frank, thank you very much indeed for taking part in this first Zwiftcast roundtable. It might be a format that I could possibly repeat when we have these kind of big events, and it will be great, certainly great to get the three of you back together when the event module is released, and we can unpick whether we were right or wrong, or surprised or underwhelmed or overwhelmed. Thanks very much, all three of you. That's it for this special edition of the Zwiftcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to us speculate about what the event module holds in store. I'll be back soon with another episode, and if you're listening on the trainer, push a little bit harder.